The camera industry is split. You have mirrorless cameras and the old DSLRs. Both have their pros and cons, and photographers are debating which one they should go for, the older cameras with mirrors or the newer electronic mirrorless cameras. Today we're actually talking about the Canon 250D. And this camera is one of the reasons I am sticking with the DSLR for now. This camera has so many great features, and I'll tell you why I think this camera is specifically better than a mirrorless camera at the end of the video. But for now, let's jump into the main specs of the Canon 250D. The Canon 250D was released in 2019. It weighs about 450 grams. It has a 24.1 megapixel sensor and it has an optical viewfinder. It has a movable screen and that is fully touchscreen. It can connect to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and has a wide range of creative functions built into the camera. The camera has a 9-point autofocus system and has a burst speed of 5 photos per second. The camera can record in 4K video and has built-in stabilization. And all of that can come in a package with the Canon's 18 to 55mm lens, which I am currently using to film this video, for about £550. Now, I've been using this camera for about 3 years now, and having taken it everywhere with me, having learnt so much about photography, I feel relatively qualified to talk about what it can do. I've taken this camera out when I do my hobby photography. I've taken it out when I do street photography, when I do some of my wildlife photography, when I go out and do product photography or photography in my studio here. Equally, I've taken it out on professional shoots, such as weddings, when I've been hired to take professional photos by the bride and groom. It's also done sports photography and shoots the photos which you see here on my YouTube channel and over on my Instagram. And that's not all. I've also used this camera for videography in weddings. I use it to vlog on my channel sometimes, and I also use it for product videos and other video scenarios, whether that's wildlife or here in the studio. This camera is incredibly versatile and can be used in all situations. It's definitely an all-rounder, but it's very good at what it does. Unfortunately, there are some things this camera cannot do. It's not weather sealed, so for wildlife photography, I can't take it out in the rain. I have to be careful to not damage the camera. And it's not the best in low light. In low light scenarios, I would take out my Canon 7D Mark II, being a professional camera that is better equipped to deal with less light. You will see quite a lot of noise from the Canon 250D. Over the last few weeks, I've been taking this camera out quite a lot, and I've been taking it across the country. If you're following my Instagram, you'll know why. Because me and my family are getting a new puppy. All the photos and videos can be found over on my Instagram at Toby Wood Photo. The link will be in the description. And I've been taking the photos and videos with this camera. And why have I been doing that? I've taken this camera with me over my professional camera because it's lightweight and compact. It's easy to take, and when I'm having to deal with up to 10 puppies, I can easily handle this camera without having to worry about it becoming damaged. This camera is also as good at photos as it is at video. And that means that I can use this camera to take photos and videos of the puppies so I can show you guys and have it to remember the days when the dog was cute. So, in summary, what are my positives to the Canon 250D? First of all, it's lightweight and compact. As a wildlife photographer and someone who likes to travel with their equipment, having something that's lightweight definitely makes it easier to bring with me. It's also small, meaning when I have a huge lens such as the Sigma 150 to 600mm lens, it doesn't take up too much room in my backpack. This camera has great video stabilization. It has built-in stabilization which you can turn off. have on a light mode or have a heavy stabilization. Don't get me wrong, if you have crazy shaky hands or you're going on a roller coaster, it's going to shake. However, it definitely helps, especially when your lens isn't too long. If I'm vlogging, for example, it will smooth out the vlog, whereas if I turn the stabilization off, you'll feel the vibrations. And I love the battery life on this camera. I believe, I'll pop the number below, but I believe it can take 1080 photos on one full charge. That's an incredible amount of photos and will almost fill up most SD cards. But it also means you can take this camera out on a shoot which will last a full day or for a full wedding. And most likely you won't have to change the battery. If you're shooting video, you will have to change it, but equally not as much as you'd have to change the equivalent camera because it really doesn't use much electricity. So, what are the negatives of the Canon 250D? As I touched on earlier, it's not weather sealed. If I take this out in the elements, I have to have a rain cover on it, and even then, it still feels dodgy. I really wouldn't want to damage this camera. However, sometimes you do want to take it out, and it would be nice to have a little bit of weather sealing. The next point is the feel of this camera. Now, I've been moving this camera around this whole video, and as I mentioned, it's lightweight and compact, meaning it's really easy to move around. That does, however, come with a disadvantage. Now, I don't have the hugest of hands. However, the buttons can feel very close together. It can feel very small and fiddly. For someone with bigger hands or who is used to a bigger camera, the compromise and getting all the buttons so much smaller may be difficult. It's more of a personal choice, and I haven't found that as too much of a problem. Having got my Canon 7D Mark II, I've noticed the difference. It's not a problem, but it's something which you should be aware of. And finally, one of the biggest challenges of this camera as a wildlife photographer is the burst speed. The burst speed is only 5 photos a second, which sounds fast, and it is perfectly fine if you want to take photos of wildlife. However, you will notice that you miss frames of a bird, say you're taking a photo of it taking off. There will be frames in there that you'll miss, which you could get with a camera which has a faster burst speed. Equally, if you're using it for portraits, or in a studio, or for video, that isn't a concern. So, as I promised at the beginning of the video, I'm going to tell you the reason why I'm sticking with DSLRs for the meantime, and not moving to the mirrorless age. That reason, as I touched on earlier, is battery life. Mirrorless cameras have this problem that everything relies on the battery. The screen, and the viewfinder. Their batteries typically, or to my understanding, won't last as long as a DSLR, and the Canon 250D has the longest battery life of all cameras when it was released, I believe. This camera will last days, and I really don't like charging up batteries. I don't like having to organise the batteries, and spare batteries can be annoying to carry. I prefer a camera that will just last me, or I may have used it before, and I know I can pick it up and use it again without having to worry about the battery running out. If you're going out on a long hike, or even a camping trip, you can take this camera with one battery and it's last me up to 3 days camping. So this camera is incredible in the way that its battery will last a long time, something which I don't believe mirrorless cameras do yet. I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Please hit that like and subscribe if you found this helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.